Bird, 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 bird. Get him, get him, get him, get him, get him. Yeah! Ron Babe was right. Ron Babe was right.
I'm feeling spry. Hey everybody, it's Ron Bain with the Hunting Dog Podcast. It's the 16th of April. This show, as always, is brought to you by our title sponsor, in part, that's the correct way of saying this, in part by our title sponsor, OnX Hunt. Now, you know, I don't know what else to tell you. I'm going to do a commercial read today because when you think about it, when you hear the numbers, if you join Onyx Elite membership, okay, now if you only travel in one state and you don't ever go anywhere, I get it, and you don't even talk to anybody in another state and want to know what they're talking about, I get it. You could do one state. But you get the Onyx Elite membership, and you will have maps to the entire nation, including 985 million acres of public land, 147 million private properties. Now, you know what that means, that 147 million private properties? I'm thinking that those are big enough to knock on a door, okay? So just extrapolate that number. 10,000 unique hunting units, 400,000 miles of trails, weather forecast for any spot in the United States. I don't know what you're waiting for, but the best thing about Onyx Elite members is that they get the preview videos of the Upland Institute. They get to dabble. They get to look and really get a feel for what, not just the commercials, not just the 3 wonderfully beautiful commercials, actually 4 that we did, but Onyx Elite members get to watch a lot of the actual training segments so they can make an informed and wise decision, which that's why Onyx partnered up with Upland Institute. So there's another benefit. And you can do the same thing if you're deer hunters. They have all kinds of deer hunting seminars. They've got a seminar, turkey hunting seminars, and then they're going to have more seminars from Justin and myself. So there's a great reason, and it's reciprocal, right? You go join up, you get some really nice discount on the Upland Institute, and Upland Institute members, if you haven't taken advantage of this already, and I know how many there are of you, there's a lot of you, you also get, if it's your first time, you get the best, absolutely, forget the 20% off that you can get on the back of a box of Cheerios or using a promo code HDP20. No, you get a serious discount. It's like, I want to say like the first 3 months free and then 30. It's I think it equates to like 60% off. So if you're an Upland Institute member and you're tired of hearing me talk about Onyx, we shouldn't be, because we have a great partner. Like all my partners, really. Today I was wearing my Pike pants. I was wearing my little Sketcher old man slip-on shoes, right? Because I didn't feel like getting lace-up boots on. Cotton T-shirt, cotton overshirt. It was the last of our nice days. I was out working on a project in the backyard, and I saw the rain coming. They said it was going to come through fast and hard. And I literally, trying to put some tools away, I got soaked. And by the time I got into the house, I mean, it looked like a bucket of water had went over my head. I got into the laundry room, stripped off all that other stuff, stripped off my Pike Kiowa pants, hung them up, put everything else in the laundry, took a shower, and those Pike Kiowa pants were dry enough to put right back on, which means you don't have to wash them. I mean, you can wash them. Anyway, I couldn't be happier with a pair of pants or their shirts or their vests or any of their hunting gear. They make technical clothing for the upland hunter, just like Boss makes shot shells for the bird hunter. I don't want to say upland. I don't want to say waterfowl, because I know many of you are jumping on the bandwagon, as I have, of course, because they're my sponsor, and quite honestly, I don't have to pay for my shells. But that's okay. It's just part of our commercial agreement. You know, I mean, I'm sure Matthew McConaughey's not going to have to pay for a trip to Montana to be in Yellowstone. I don't know why I'm even thinking of that, although I do like Matthew McConaughey. But Boss shot shells, if you shoot anything with feathers, you need Boss shot shells. It's the only copper-plated bismuth shell out there. They have every shell from 410 to 4,000. Well, that's not even a gauge. Anyway, anything from 410 to 12 gauge and everything in between, you can find Boss. You will hit the birds better because when you do hit them, you get them. I like that. When you hit them, you get them. You can even go hunt with like some of my friends' dogs that don't retrieve because the birds are going to be dead when they land there. Walton's has after you get all those birds and you're dressed in your cool-looking pike pants and shirts and vests and all that, and then you're home from your hunting trip or this time of year, look in your freezer. How many birds do you have? Do you have some venison? Do you have some fish? I got some halibut. I got some stuff left over from last year in Alaska. And Walton's has every spice under the sun. And I don't mean just the sun. I mean like the sun of all suns, the universe. Nobody has as many spices as the Walton's catalog, let alone everything else you could use to make your kitchen into a wild game kitchen where people are like, I'm going over to Ron's to eat again. In my case, they usually say I'm coming over to Ron's to drink again. But if you subscribe and get to the Walton's catalog, you will be, you'll have another reason to be in trouble from your better half, whoever your better half is, right? If it's your wife or your husband yelling at you, it's because you got the Walton's catalog and you just can't quit shopping. Thank God Gunner does not have that many different SKUs, but what they do have will last you a lifetime. The kennels, the food crates, the orthopedic mats, the winter covers, the winter door cover. Of course, let's not even think about winter anymore. We'll store those on the side. Gunner, kennels, and food crates are your one-time purchase. Everything else you're going to have to buy again. You're going to have to buy more shells. You're going to have to buy more pants. You're going to have to buy Onyx again next year. But when you buy your Gunner products, you buy them once, they last you forever. That's like forever, E-V-E-R. Nothing else. I mean, Garmin doesn't last forever. You can't make something on this planet electrically last forever, but it'll last you a long time, and it'll give you peace of mind while training and tracking your dog, I was just talking to Yanni Patelis yesterday, and we were talking about our Garmins and with his dog Mingus, and we had a heck of a conversation. And, I don't want to tell Garmin that they should be sponsoring Yanni's show, but it'd give them some more traction in the hound world. Of course, I mean, real hound hunters, they wouldn't use anything besides Garmin. And we know there's only one Garmin. There's other brands out there, but there's only one Garmin. There's only one W hunting supply where you feel like you're buying from a friend. It's like going to the old hardware store as opposed to going to Home Depot. Ever go to like Home Depot and all the orange little vests walking around? You ask them something, they're like, I don't really know. Let me get my phone out. I think it's in aisle 13. You're looking for like lawn and garden or pushing you over to plumbing. No, you go to W Hunting Supply, and it's like going to the old school hardware store where the guy that runs the store knows the stuff, knows the product. That is the beauty of W Hunting Supply. It's like the beauty of Canine Athlete, Purina, the things that we put, everything else we put around us, the things we put in our dog, Purina Pro Plan, and the supplements we feed, like probiotics and Hydrate and Recover and New Dog. Yeah, that is the best that you can do for your dog. Anything in the Purina lineup, anything in the Canine lineup, and anything in the Wilderness Athlete lineup if it's for your personal use. That's right, you're human, you're Homo sapien. They have a Homo sapien line called Wilderness Athlete. So that's it. That was almost painless. Where are we at? 8 minutes, 39 seconds. I think I got everybody. Yeah, I think I got them, right? Onyx, I'm looking at my list. Pike, Boss, Walton's, Gunner, Garmin, W, Purina, Canine. Yeah, that's it. Oh, don't forget the Upland Institute. No, duh. That was a faux pas. The Hunting Dog Podcast store. We are right now, I don't even know if you can get a onesie. So if your grandson, granddaughter, kids, neighbors having a baby, if you know in a few months out, and that's what you want to get them the I'm Feeling Spry onesie, I would go on the HTB store because it ran out a couple times. I don't know why. Of all the things that would oversell, onesies. I don't know. Maybe there's some weird thing people do with them besides give them to, infants. I have no idea. But you can get T-shirts, hats, different colors, long sleeves, different styles of hat, even those hats that I can't stand that a lot of people wear. Or you can get the cool-looking hats that I wear. Several different logos that my daughter Kelsey worked on. My daughter Jessie manages the store. The water bottles. It's not neck gator time of year, but we're trying to think of it all. So when you are looking for a little something to support my daughters, my stay-at-home mom daughters, old school stuff here, all right, go to the HTB store. I do not have a iron in that fire. That is just for my daughters to run. God bless them. God bless America. America. Oh, I'm feeling froggy today. I'm telling you what. Sorry, I'm a little geeked up. I'm a lot geeked up. This Thursday, we're going to have a Zoom room for you people still hanging in there. My patrons are getting the monthly conversations with me and Ty Webster from the B3 podcast. Me and Ty got on last week and shot the shit for about an hour, covered actually nothing, and had a fun time doing it, just shooting the shit. That's how me and Tyler just yak away when we catch up. And once a month that comes on. What does it come on? The Patreon patron platform for Hunting Dog Podcast. And our weekly updates on Zuka's training. Going through tie-out stake, waiting to be released. Puppy walks are coming up. I'll be doing gunfire soon. I'll be filming her out at the training grounds. All that stuff goes on to the Hunting Dog Podcast Patreon platform, and you can join, and you can get all that information. You can get my phone number, because a lot of you have my phone number, and you're not patrons. I still love you. But I'll answer the phone all the time for my patrons. And you get discounts on Pike gear, discounts on Walton, special discounts on Walton, special discounts on Canine Athlete. Things you just can't get anywhere else for those things. That's right. Wow. Well, that ended up another 3 minutes, but you'll forgive me. This interview I ran up and did last week. I've known this fella for a long time, known of him for a while. He actually is my son-in-law's boss, right? My son-in-law is an editor, an outdoor videographer, mostly editor these days. And Mark Peterson, he's one of those guys that you would say has equal amounts of time and money, because this guy chases it, and you can't do it without both. And Mark has put on he has done the every grouse or every upland bird species in North America, and then he put out a book about it, and then he did the waterfowl slam. Is that a slam? I don't like the word slam, but he went after every species of waterfowl, and now he's dragging my son-in-law to New Zealand to do the same thing with waterfowl in New Zealand. I didn't even know they had any ducks. Anyway, went over to Mark's place to catch up, hear about his start, how he got going, his first dogs, his first shots at birds, and then where it took him for a journey across this country with his dad that was almost like a marathon of a Wingshooting Marathon. That's going to be the name of this title of this episode, Wingshooting Marathon. I love you guys. I love you girls. I love you patrons more. Well, I love you girls more too. Oops, I had to squeak this in. Speaking of patrons who I love more. So for the rest of this year, if you're a new patron in a month, so the patrons who joined up this month in April, I'll do a drawing on one of those people, and they're going to get hat, T-shirt, just a regular little bling, but not to make my longtime patrons, meaning 2 months to 6 years, okay? They will also go into a monthly drawing for a little extra bling. We're going to put a little package together. And my Hunting Dog Podcast talk patrons, the ones who really, really love me, well, love the show, love the content. They don't love me. I don't expect you to. They are going to be in the running for a pet portrait. My wife does these unbelievable pet portraits. I've got one of Bravo and one of Taffy. It doesn't necessarily have to be a dog that's passed on, but she made 2 of them for me. She's a very accomplished artist. And glass coasters with Hunting Dog Podcast. So whatever way you pick, there's something for you coming down the pike. Yeah, this month, next month, last month, you're all in. I'm all in. Hey, everybody, it's Ron Bain with the Hunting Dog Podcast. I am at the, what am I at, Mark?
My office / trophy room is what I call it.
I would call it a roadside Cabela's, maybe.
It could be. Yeah, it could be considered that.
I'm looking at a grizzly bear, another grizzly bear. I just realized that the end table in front of me is a huge alligator. I take it you.
Yep. Everything you see in here. This was me in the field. A lot of memories made.
I mean, I should have came. Well, I got lost a half an hour trying to find this place. Well. Anyways, for everybody, Mark Peterson is a fellow I got to know through Justin McGrail, and Mark has literally hunted the whole world, basically.
Hunted quite a fair share of it.
Kind enough to send me a couple of books, your Upland Slam and your Waterfowl Slam. And they're just a great coffee table book. It's one of them books you just look through and the pictures, and it's like old school.
Yep.
Right. It's not you didn't do it to teach anybody how to do this. You just documented your trips.
Yep.
What was your start with? Because I know you've got Brittany's. I know we're going to get into our connections.
Yeah.
But what was your start?
Just into upland hunting, or into hunting? Into upland hunting. So that's how I grew up hunting. Was my dad always had bird dogs, and we had English setters when I was growing up.
Oh, you had setters back then?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was it's growing up in Michigan back in the 80s, the late 80s, early 90s, is, the deer hunting and turkey hunting wasn't exactly what it is today.
Right.
But the grouse numbers were high. So I always followed my dad around grouse hunting and looking for woodcock. And what I learned being a father as well is the beauty about taking a kid out when you're upland hunting is it doesn't matter how much noise they really make. Right? And you're gonna tire them out one way or the other.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Dad was out there for teaching me how to hunt or to get me tired for my mom, but he got me addicted to hunting along the way.
So you're just following them without a gun even
Without
in the
even a gun. I'd carry
Yeah.
a stick, and then all of a sudden I think just like a lot of people back then is you'd stop partway through, and I'd be 7 or 8 or whatever, and he'd hand me his side-by-side and say, you want to shoot it? And that's how I grew up shooting shotguns, is learning to do that. And then once I could take the punch from him, once you could take the punch, there was not a lot of recoil reduction back in the day. Once I could do that, then all of a sudden he would let me carry it in the field unloaded, and that was kind of the progression. And all of a sudden you could start having a loaded gun.
When did you actually get to pull the trigger on, I got a little spiky problem here.
Yeah.
Let me get this down here. How's that? That's better.
Yep.
When did you actually get to pull the trigger on because shooting a rough grouse, as we know, is no easy chore.
No. So I shot my first rough grouse when I was 12.
Yeah.
I had went pheasant hunting at a preserve with Dad when I was 10.
Yeah.
So it was somewhere in between there, but the legal age to hunt here was 10. And I was telling you a story when you walked in. I still have that grouse mounted. It's all matty now, but I was 12 years old at our property in Hart, Michigan here. And that's where I shot that one right down a 2-track road, just like how many grouse have been shot down a old 2-track road. That was my first grouse story. And I was so excited. And it was one of those things, like looking back now, Dad was probably more excited than I was.
Oh, yeah.
But having been in the field with my kids now, it was that same excitement, right? Like what they just accomplished. Like maybe I hadn't hunted enough to realize what that first grouse was, and Dad realized what that first one was.
Yeah, that was your first. To you, that was your first of many.
Yep.
In your head, but to your dad, it was.
There was a lot. In hindsight, there was a lot of work for him to get me to that point, right? To lead, to be able to do everything like you're supposed to do in the field, and I mean, just a grouse and a woodcock. It's not a pheasant in an open prairie field. There's a lot that goes into that.
I interviewed a biologist from Minnesota once, and she was doing a youth hunt, and they were going to take the kids on a grouse hunt in Minnesota. I'm like, I would have gone. Well, I would have went to the pheasant preserve.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard enough, to get a layup shot down a road. That was probably your only chance to hit a grouse.
Yeah.
I mean,
at that age,
it's impossible.
There was no walking through poplars, right?
No.
There was none of that where dogs on point, you get the flash, you go off the sound, and you see the flash, and you lead it, and all of a sudden you're like, I hit it.
Yeah.
There was none of that happening.
And I'm sure the next one didn't come the next day.
I'm trying to remember. It may have been a year or two since I got the next one.
Yeah.
But like that got it. We always had the bird dogs at the house, so they were inside. I mean, it was just part of the lifestyle we had growing up on a farm, as you had dogs around and we would bird hunt.
And there was more grouse around back then.
There
That's
was
about
a
when
lot.
I moved here. We had grouse hitting our front window of our house. We were the only house on the road.
Yeah.
And they could see our front window and our back bay
Oh, yeah.
window. And they must always think that's a hole in the woods.
Yep.
And bam, there'd be a
Just
grouse.
right down.
Right
So,
down.
I mean, that was back to when you'd be driving and you'd see them alongside the road and all that. Like, I can't tell you the last time I've seen a grouse alongside of a road.
Very, very little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then that kind of led to when I got into high school, able to drive. So I was turned 16 between my freshman and sophomore year, and at that time I had a short hair. We transitioned from a setter into a short hair. Just, I guess that was kind of the trend of what it was back then. Is the mindset is you needed this high energy dog that could keep going. Why to hunt in Michigan, I have no idea, but that's what we did. So I had my dog Rusty that I had through high school. Mm-hmm. And the beauty, I didn't play football in the fall, so during the fall after school, I had nothing but time, right?
Oh,
so
nice.
I'd bird hunt, and we had a lot of farms that would have little pine patches or poplar patches, and I mean, hindsight, I overhunted them way too much. But I would go, and after school, I'd try to hit 3 or 4 of them. And when you hunted that much, you were getting to be a pretty good shot when you got an opportunity.
Yeah.
We actually get a pretty decent woodcock flight at our place in Hart. Mm-hmm. So there's about a 2.5 week window to where I could go out there.
It shifts a little bit.
Yep.
But
it's funny because I look back at the pictures because Dad and I, we always try to go out there and it's like, well, is it early? Is it not? You see some and then you get out there and you're like, is this a flight bird? Is it not? I look back at my photos. It's within 3 days every year that we get into where you're like, yep, that's flight birds.
Right.
And then it's basically a week straight of limits. Just
you can't. You'd have to be Helen Keller to not. There's so many birds popping.
Well, so I loved that part in high school because I could literally get done with high school, go grab my dog, run to Hart, and I could be hunting by 4, and we'd be walking out with a limit at like 4:20, and I felt like the king of the world. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And then you're like, well, let's just walk around for a grouse, and then it humbles you for the next 2 hours. But you at least got my limit of woodcock.
Right. Yeah, that's everybody's favorite bird when they're hunting grouse.
Yep, exactly.
I remember when I moved to Michigan, like I said, we had quite a few grouse, and with that many grouse, there was more woodcock in that area too. The forest was younger, and my neighbor down at the end of the street, Pastotnik, I asked him if I could hunt his property along the railroad tracks. As a neighbor of mine said, God, there all used to be grouse. Just walk down the railroad tracks. So we had a lot of pine tree, a lot of fir trees, and that was a go-to spot. And I would get a shot at a grouse once in a while, but it was so close to home. Kids are in diapers. I told my wife, I'm like, I'll just be gone for an hour, you know. And I did not know what a flight of woodcock was because I just moved to Michigan. They didn't have them in Chicago.
No.
Believe it or not. Never seen one in Chicago. Pigeons. We had a lot of
flights of pigeons.
And who knew pigeons would come back into the dog world later
exactly,
on, right?
Exactly.
And I remember my dog Queenie, she goes on point, bird pops up. I took a shot at it. I remember distinctly missing it. And then another one came up. And I remember hitting it. And then another one come up. And then she moved. And I did not know that that's what they did.
Yeah.
So for anybody who ever runs into that, it only happens for a little bit, once in a while, but it's crazy exciting.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, it could take the edge off and not hitting a grouse.
Exactly.
And it's
so
grouse.
Dad and I, ever since we did the Upland Slam in 19, ever since then, we've kind of been doing to where our schedules, we're not on the road here in that last part of October, so we try to get to where that flight is there, and once it's in, we go out for about a week straight. It's because it's fun, right?
So
it's
that place is just, Adam told me he'd been up to your other place.
Yeah.
And you've been grooming that? What did you do for habitat there?
So we've got some aspen trees up front that we've cut, would have been at different stages now. We cut about every 3 to 4 years. Mm-hmm. So we have constant growth, and it's right along the Pentwater River. So that river has to be what they're migrating on.
Yeah.
And then we actually shifted fields about 10 years ago. We used to have just this open scrub field. It used to be an old apple orchard. Had scrub trees and couldn't get anything to grow there. Soil was too sandy, and for whatever reason, the woodcock went to this. And if you had a pine tree, there was one underneath. If you had an old apple tree with high grass, there was a woodcock there. And it just got to where it was so grown up they stopped coming there, but they started going to the other side of our property. So then we started to really manage this. It's about probably 25 acres. But it's the right 25 acres.
Yeah.
So it's the same stuff. It's perfect for woodcock. It's too thick to truly hunt for grouse because we'll put grouse up in there, and it's one of those. I heard it. Did you see it? No, I didn't see it. Didn't see it.
Of course not.
No, we'll catch that next time. Yeah.
Yeah. Was that a gray phase? I have no idea.
No clue.
No clue.
And I'm the one. If you hunt with me and we're grouse hunting, I yell like I see it when I hear it.
Right.
Grouse, 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 grouse. Everybody gets excited. Everybody's looking around.
Right.
Where is it? I have no idea. I just heard it. It was there. Trust me, it was there.
But that's how I learned when I came up here. My buddy Jeff, he asked me if I wanted to go grouse hunting, and I came from Illinois. Didn't have any grouse either, let alone woodcock. And he would just yell bird. He didn't. That's what he would just. He would just go bird.
Yep.
And I was like, what? And he didn't see him either. But you might see him if you holler out.
Exactly.
Because that bird might be sailing past you.
Yep.
It's such a weird, there's a lot of things you can hunt out west that are all kind of the same. You just got to put miles on. You might find a hun, you might find a pheasant, you might find a Sharpie, right? And here, there's two things to do, and they never stop being difficult.
No, there's never an easy. They never get them in the easy spot.
No.
Yeah.
You think you got the woodcock, unless you get lucky with a flight.
Yeah.
You could struggle on them.
Yep.
You can struggle on grouse. Then you can struggle on your shooting.
Yeah.
On them in grouse.
Yep.
It's the absolute worst.
And it always seems like the grouse you're going to get into the grouse when you're not fully paying attention, right? It's been an hour and a half. The dog's tired. It's just one of those things. You've hiked through the prime spot, and you just put the gun up on the shoulder.
Yeah, you quit.
And then all of a sudden,
at Port Arms.
you look over, and the dog's on point, and there, there it is.
Yeah, I think the best grouse hunter would be the guys that are in combat and have to be the lead guy with, holding the gun at Port Arms.
Fully ready. Yep.
We had a giveaway contest this year, and a young guy and his girlfriend came up from Florida to go grouse hunting the UP.
Okay.
And I hunted with him for 2 days. And we gave the guy he never hunted birds in his life.
Oh, okay.
Went to a sporting clays a lot with his mom. And we're thinking, his first question, he goes so how do you think I should transport all the meat home? I'm like, we're going to be lucky if we get a meal.
Yep.
And that son of a gun got 2 grouse and 3 woodcock on his first day.
Oh, really?
But he was such a good student because he didn't know any better.
Yeah.
He never put that hand was on the pistol grip.
He was always ready.
And the hand on the forearm. And that guy had said, you just be ready. If he even saw him relaxing, he goes, be ready.
Yeah.
And we all get late, an hour walking around. You're like, well, I'll just switch hands here.
Yeah, switch. Next thing you know, you're dangling it down, your left hand down by the knee.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a recipe for a bird to come up.
Yep.
I think if you ever hunt with a good partner, you should one should act like he doesn't care, and the other one should be ready, and then switch every 15 minutes.
Rotate so you get
Might help. I don't know.
So we in high school, after I did that and we got to the college, Dad and I started going out west. We go to North Dakota, plots land. So it was the same thing that you mentioned because you can go in there and you can hunt pheasants, huns, Sharpies.
Right.
You could duck hunt.
Yeah.
You could draw swan tags. Literally, you could do anything you wanted out there for a week as a bird hunter. It was heaven, right? Some days we'd start the morning, we'd go duck hunting. We'd duck hunt until 9:30, 10 o'clock. You grab your dog, you go pheasant hunting for the rest of the day. And there were days we'd get into 13 different birds, right? By the time you got all your ducks, your pheasants, into some Sharpies, catch a hun, and you're like, that was prime plots to where it wasn't over hunted and people weren't posting a lot. So North Dakota, if it wasn't posted for the half mile on either side, you're good to go in there. Now everything's posted, but that was back to where they weren't really worried about birds, they were worried about the deer. So we out there, my famous thing was the first year I didn't have a sling on my 12 gauge, right? Mm-hmm. The second year, hiking all the miles, I put a sling on. So now all of a sudden you're bouncing in between a fence row that should have pheasants. You pick one up, and now you're walking this field to the next likely spot in your mind that's going to hold a bird. So you sling it, walking across casually, and that's where the pheasant takes off in a cut sorghum field that's 3 inches tall.
Right.
And you're like, where was that bird at?
Laying down like a duck on the water.
Where was that bird at? And then so I don't know how many times when trying to get the gun off the shoulder and the sling's caught. And so I'd rotate just about every other year of going, I'm not going to wear a sling this year.
And then you talk yourself into it again.
I'm just going to wear a sling. Yeah.
I can tell you I've never had a sling on my gun out west. But again, you probably were duck hunting and
we were doing
a lot of auto loaders. Everybody keeps a sling on them.
Yep, exactly.
But that would be a recipe for something to go wrong or catch your
Yep.
your transmitter on the way up. No, that's
So
a bad move.
When we did the upland slam, I didn't use anything with a sling. I used an over-under 12 for all my stuff, and then I used 20 gauge for some of the lighter quail and everything like that, but I never had a sling on it.
So you've been bird hunting since you were a kid. You travel all over. Well, we should get a little background too,
Yep.
so people. I mean, I know you. I don't think anybody knows you from,
Yeah.
the family business or whatever.
Yep.
You have your company WTA that actually my son-in-law works for.
Yep. Adam's. I've known Adam now for 5 years.
Yeah.
Rusted Rooster. Time flies. So I'll give the quick background spiel on me. So I'm actually a 5th generation fruit tree farmer. That's
this part of the country of Michigan.
Yep, we're in Oceana County. We're one of the largest tart cherry areas. So that's what my father, he had a large tart cherry farm, and then in 1983, the year that I was born, he actually started processing his own fruit. Started with just the true American success story, right? You started with just processing your own. The next year, he had his 2 neighbors, and eventually grew it to have 500 farm families from across Canada, U.S.,
Like
and
being
Mexico.
the dairy in Wisconsin where they made the milk. All the farmers brought you their cows, their milk.
Yep. So same thing. So the processing grew to being the largest tart cherry processor in the U.S. I think we were largest frozen blueberry processor, largest frozen apple processor, and then that kind of led. So when my senior year of college was when McDonald's rolled out the apple dippers. So they had apples at McDonald's, and that was we supplied a large portion of the eastern U.S. with that. So I was going to college 2 days a week, and then I was actually the plant manager there. When I graduated from college, I became VP of operations. We had 5 different plants, right around 1,000 employees. So I did that for 10 years.
Yeah.
And of course, summer and fall were our busy times, and fall was when my true passion to hunt was.
Yeah.
And a lot of people hear the horror stories, right? You're in a family business, and then somebody so I had worked on the farm from when I was 8, right? I was mowing orchards in a Massey Ferguson when I was 8.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you go to jail now if you let your kid on a Massey Ferguson now. But
you can't even let him walk around it.
No, but times were different, right? Dad's like, you got to go mow the 40-acre orchard at 8. And allergies and like all that stuff. But like you learn so much from it. But so I had done that all the way through grade school. I'd worked during the summer, spring breaks, and so forth. And then college, I worked all the way through in the summer. I don't know how many 100-hour weeks during the summer you'd do during cherry season, and just what we did. So when I turned 30, I talked with my dad, and he had the heart-to-heart of, Dad, I don't really want to do this for the next until I retire.
For the next 30. Yeah.
So then he asks, okay, what do you want to do? And that's where I go, I want to go into the hunting world. And that's where he looks at you and goes, huh. Well, what's your plan? And I'm like, this is me being, I'm going to have a TV show. And he's like, huh, okay. So
your dad's got to be pouring himself a drink at this point.
Probably had a bad night. I was just saying, Linda's my mom. This is what Mark came and talked to me about. But over the next month, he helped me transition away from the family business and truly give the outdoor world a shot. And his advice was, when I was younger, he was a teacher, actually a principal for 9 years, and he goes,
on top of being a farmer.
Well,
and all the other.
when he went through and started teaching, became a principal, and then they were looking for something to do during the summer, right? Because teaching's only 9 months a year, 8 now, but 9 months a year. So they were a tart cherry farmer. That's how
that all tied in.
Yep. So my grandpa was a tart cherry farmer, but then my dad went back to it because he could do it during the summer, and it would all be over before they went back to school. So my mom and dad were both teachers.
Wow.
My dad realized being a principal wasn't very fun. That's not what he wanted to do for the next 30 years. So he transitioned and came to the farm to be a full-time farmer because that's what his passion was. So he told me he understands, right? Like you were a farmer, and then into a plant setting, you never had a chance to go and do what you wanted to do. Like even through college, I graduated college, but I was still working the whole time through. I knew what I was going to do after college. I never had a chance to go out and do anything.
Right, you never went to McDonald's.
Yeah,
I
never had anything.
Yeah.
Right? That's all I did. So he understood the need or desire to go and try to do something by yourself. And I've told the story a lot. Like, I made the worst decision going into the hunting industry of trying to do a TV show off the bat, right? Like, that's all I would do then. I was hooked on it. I'd watch hunting TV shows for, 3 hours at night, right? Like, that's was my passion. It's hunting.
Yeah.
It's what I wanted to do, and that's what you see. And then I went and did it. I'm like, I can do all this stuff. I can go to these places and film and when I started, it turns out I was awful on camera. I just was. I was a stone face on camera. It takes a long time to loosen up.
Yeah, just because you wanted to do something doesn't mean you're the next.
I was terrible at it. And then you go and you know this. How do you got to get partners, right? Like, how do you pay for this?
You got to get sponsors.
You got to have sponsors to do it. Well, every sponsor you go up to with an idea, and they're like, yeah. You and the other 130 people that came to see me today that have no background, that don't have any following, would all like us to sponsor a show, but you need some history behind you.
Right.
And one of the partners I'm actually with now is a different person at the company, though. They came and said, we don't even look at people unless you've had a show for 3 years.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, hey. Okay.
Well, I'm glad starting a podcast is easier than that.
Yeah. So you're like, okay, well, now all of a sudden, because I've got the cost of having these guys film me and so forth, but along that first year, my other passion was, and I would always use Cabela's Outdoor Adventure and Tag Service. They handle my tags portfolio, and they handled a lot of my outfitting trips that I'd booked at the time because I didn't know if I was going to Kansas or wherever. I didn't have the resources back then to be able to know who the best person was to go
Right.
if I was going out there. So they always lined me up and were great with it. And I love their business model, right? It's a consultant, so you're free in the fall, but you get to help everybody plan their trip. So it's almost like you're going hunting, but you're doing all the legwork for it. So I like that model. And there was a small boutique booking agency called Worldwide Trophy Adventures out of St. George, Utah. Had 2 employees.
And they were just kind of like a small version of what Cabela's was doing.
Like I say the word boutique because they didn't have many clients.
Right.
Like they wanted to grow, but they
word.
didn't have many clients. And they needed a marketing push. So here I am trying to do this show, and it just kind of worked that I became majority owner because I had the marketing push, right? They were just looking for somebody to do it. So now all of a sudden I had this TV show, but now I had something to drive.
Yeah.
Now I was driving the booking service, and each time I hit the field, I was driving that experience to get more people to do it. And I instantly saw that it was working. I'd air a show, the phones in the office would ring.
Sure.
So you're starting to see this now. And along that way, like, okay, now we're starting to get some momentum on doing it. Still not to the sponsor part, right? Because you don't have the big following. But what I was starting to do is realize that, okay, this is a model that works. What I didn't realize was about a year after I closed on WTA, Dad and I were in Saskatchewan looking at what would be the first outfitter I ever purchased. There was an older couple that out of Maine that had they had 3 waterfall concessions in Saskatchewan, and they were ready to retire. He'd been in the Army. He was almost 70, and he would just go up there because he would do it late summer through the fall, back for October. It was a 3-month gig for him, and the payback on it was great. He wanted to sell to an American. He had somebody that actually runs it for me right now that was very young and up and coming. He wanted that person to run it. He just didn't have the money to pay for it.
Right.
Couldn't get the financing. So I could get the financing for it. So we were up there and we were doing a fall bear hunt in the afternoon after we had goose hunted that morning. And I got a call from Eric Pollock, who still works for me today, but he was the tags manager for Cabela's Outdoor Adventure and Tags. And he called and said, hey, Tommy Milner just walked in, who was Cabela's CEO at the time, and said they're putting our division up for sale. He asked for all of us to reach out to anybody that we thought may be of interest and just to give them a heads up.
So you were doing this on a small scale.
A very, very small scale. Very small scale.
Yeah.
I could at the time I almost had all the clients that we had on my phone. Right? Like extremely small.
Right.
Now, some very good clients are still with us today, but I mean extremely small. And the Saskatchewan thing, like, it made sense because they had an existing, like, of everything I've ever done, the Saskatchewan waterfall thing was just a no-brainer. We got up there, we looked at the books, we got to experience it. I'm like,
The clients.
yeah,
You
I'm
see
like,
how
this is a no-brainer. It's the
Right.
best. It's the best waterfall experience that there is in North America. And I'm
Yeah.
like, this is in it. Like, it literally had a 2-year payoff. It was like, I looked at it, I'm like, I'd do that one 1,000 times in a row again if I
Right.
ever stumble across that. And so at the same time we were closing on that, now I started the process with Cabela's Outdoor Adventure and Tag Service. Now I've got a little bit more base, a little bit more clout. I've been in the industry for going on over 2 years now. And I remember they had everybody go to Sydney that was going to put a bid in for it. So I had to fly out to Sydney. I landed in Denver, and it was going to be literally a quick 24-hour trip out and back. And I remember being on the plane in Minneapolis. So you fly from Grand Rapids, Minneapolis. I was just getting on the Minneapolis, like to fly out to Sydney. And Ralph Kastner, who was the CFO of Cabela's at the time, called me, and he said, hey, just so you know, later today, we're pretty casual around here. Don't dress up in a suit. And I'm sitting on the plane in a suit and tie, and all I've got is a pair of sweats to change into and fly back home later that day. And I'm like,
that's a decision you had to make.
So now I'm like really casual or dressed up, because everything that I had ever done, the Walmart meetings, the McDonald's, Burger King, we always dressed up. I was always in a suit. I was in a sport coat, whatever it was. When I showed up there, I was always dressed up. So I'm like, well, this is what it is. I'm going to show up dressed up. And I showed up there, and there were Levi's, jeans. I mean, I don't even think anybody had a collared shirt on, like extremely casual.
Yeah.
So I walk in dressed, and I give my spiel, and the whole time there's the VP of marketing for Cabela's, who was kind of headed up on this thing, and he's kind of just grilling me the whole time, just like, I don't want to sell this division. This is not my call. Whoever's going to buy it, like, you really got. And I left that meeting, and I called Dad, and he's like, how'd it go? Do you think we're going to have a shot? And I'm like, man, I don't think so. This guy was rough on me. I was too young. I thought about all this stuff.
Yeah.
And at that point, we submitted our bids, and I got the call about 10 days later that I'd won. And Ryan Watchhorn, who was the VP of marketing, is my CEO at WTA now. He was the one that was sitting across the room. And he goes, we knew it was going to be you before you even got there. We were just putting a stress test on you. We were never going to, and I didn't find out until 5 years later. I didn't even have one of the top bids. I wasn't even close.
Oh, my God.
They didn't pick it for money. They picked it because the relationship that they were going to have with this company moving forward was going to be hand in hand. So they needed it to be the right guy. So
you could have wore the sweats.
I could have wore the sweats. Maybe it would have been too casual, but they said, no.
I was thinking you got the thing because you were the best dressed one
there.
there.
They said, no, you passed every stress test of us coming at you. You were relaxed the whole time. You gave the right answer. You're down to earth. I'm like, I'm a Midwest guy. Like, that's.
But then you probably have a lot of experience when you were working with your dad's company, right?
That was
all those business meetings, like you said, Walmart, McDonald's.
So
you had to go in there ready to fill that order and act as confident as you could. Like, well, I think we can supply you with.
So McDonald's does. So I was in charge of production. So McDonald's did quarterly cuttings, which is basically any product that they have. They bring all the suppliers they're used to into Oak Brook, and then they moved to downtown Chicago, which is a bad call. But like they used to go to Oak Brook. So Oak Brook Hamburger U was what they called their place.
Name.
Yeah. Yep. So we'd go there once a quarter, and you would have a blind test of every supplier that they had for apples was sitting there, and I was the one from Peterson Farms that went there.
Yeah.
So now I was the only one that did production. Everybody else was a sales guy or marketing guy, so I could tell everybody else's fruit like really thing. But I mean, some things would come up in there to when they got to yours, and you're like, oh man, they got a bad bag or something like that. So you'd have to work on your feet pretty good while staying calm. So like that experience, it helped a lot. Yeah. Like I didn't realize, and I was only 22 when I started that. Like how many 22-year-olds could go into and sit in a corporate office at McDonald's or Walmart or Burger King or Wendy's or Chiquita, like all these places, like how many people could go and do that?
Yeah.
So I didn't, like I look back now, all that was very valuable for what I do now.
Father's Day's got to be a big day around your house.
Oh yeah, extremely.
Your dad must have put a lot of good shit in you.
Yep. So, and it was.
You don't get that good at 22 without a great dad.
So
a great mom.
I look back, it's just different, right? Like I had to work from 8 on. Like I wasn't joking. If I wasn't in the summer, I worked every week. Like my friends would go and they'd go to the beach and do this, and I got time off to play basketball on weekends. That was what I got time off for. Yeah. Other than that, I had to go, and I could go to practice after I worked.
Because it was a family operation.
It was a family business. We were growing. So I had to work on the farm. And one of the things Dad knew in his head that I was going to eventually be VP of operation. So I have 2 other siblings, an older sister and an older brother, and everybody kind of had their niche, right? My brother was the financial one. My sister was the marketing and sales person, and that left me for being the production guy.
Right.
So he groomed me for that. So all along, I had worked every single position at every plant up until I became VP of operation.
Yeah.
And he said, the reason I had you do this is because anybody that comes to see you, you're going to know exactly what they're talking about in their job. So there's going to be nobody that can say, pull something past you because you've worked that job.
Right. They're not going to say the Canuter valve broke. You're like, no, it didn't.
Yeah. Now during that time, was it fun? No, it was not fun leading up to that, but it was one of those things when you got there, I completely understood why he did everything for those years leading up to it.
Yeah.
How to deal with people, and it was all sorts of people, right? Like you were dealing with sanitation all the way from first and second shift, anywhere in between.
Oh, yeah.
So you're like, and it's just different personalities that work a night shift versus day shift for sanitation. So you're having to deal with all sorts of personalities, and it kind of just built you up, like in my mind, to be better handling people or situations. Like it takes a lot to get me riled in a situation because I've been through so many in my life. There's no reason. Like, what can I do to get worked up right now? It's not gonna help solve the situation. So anyway, that led to was accepted as the winning bid for Cabela's Outdoor Adventures, and now all of a sudden WTA becomes not the small, we're the largest in the world.
Right.
And
so did you change the name, or you took the client base?
We kept the client base. I kept the employees. And we're based in Sidney, Nebraska. We've moved offices. We're looking at moving to a bigger one just because we've grown so much. But I kept the main consultants, right? Those are the ones with the wealth of knowledge.
Yep.
The other ones that nobody really like. Why is it so tough to be in business? I kept the accountants.
Yeah.
The ones you want to talk about who runs a business, it's our ladies in the office. It's not the guys on the phone. Don't let those guys fool you. It's the ladies behind them that are doing all the hard work.
Yeah.
But since then, it's like we got that. And the reason Cabela's sold it was because it was right when Cecil the Lion thing was going on.
Oh, really?
And it was also a year before they announced that they were going for sale. So as they were sitting there, that's a liability for when you're going for a sale for a small department. But what they wanted is that name brand recognition of, yes, we're still the authority because we handle the booking. Right. So right now, WTA is the only company not owned by Johnny Morris or Bass Pro or Cabela's that you can use the Cabela's Bass Pro credit card with.
Gotcha.
Earn points, use gift cards with us, anything.
Right.
We're right there as part of it.
And you guys book hunts, any game, any fish, any
nook and cranny in the world. I say we can find whatever you're looking for. If you want to get a purple-eared timber doodle from
Uruguay, whatever.
Flies, runs, or crawls, we got it.
You have a connection to find that trip.
Yep.
So can you help me out with England a little bit? Can we help me out?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so
I got to find the right trip to England someday.
So I've, as you've known, the last couple of years on my slams, I started with the Upland Slam. And the only reason that I got to do that is because now all of a sudden I grinded it out long enough in the industry that I had a name brand behind me. Yeah. But my name brand was an international big game hunter.
Right.
Where I grew up hunting as an upland guy. But the reason I didn't show any of that is because if you look at viewing, which everybody does, upland gets a lot less views than a sheep on top of the mountain, an elk, and so forth. I love all hunting, but I finally got far enough in my filming that I could take a 4-month window off from being in the field. I had enough episodes
done. So is that about
done.
what it took you to do it?
It was 4 months.
4 months.
Mm-hmm.
From trip to trip to trip to trip to all the different states.
Yep. And you look at my pictures from the first one to the end, I aged, I don't know, about 15 years in between. I don't know how many times. You know how it is with dogs. You'll walk out west for 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, get back, eat, then you got to go take care of your dogs. You got to wrap up paws. You got to pull cactus. You got to do all this stuff. So you're sleeping. And then all of a sudden we'd hit the truck and we'd drive to the next location because we tried to hit as many opening days as we could along the way.
Yeah, so on top of that, you had to get out a big whiteboard to figure this out, right? Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, most people listen to this show know that you can hit the grouse early.
Yep.
But there's places you don't want to miss, like you don't want to be in Alaska in January. So you got to squeeze that one in, and that one's actually open earlier.
Yep.
I think August, right?
Yep, that one opens in August.
So is that what you did? You poke that one out first?
So what I did, the first trip was for the Snowcock in the Rude Mountains. That's the only trip my dad didn't join.
That's the only one I don't like.
Yep, that's the only one my dad didn't join. It's the only one I didn't bring my own dogs on.
Right.
And when I did the Slam, it was all our own dogs.
Yeah.
So That was the only one, just because, and I wanted to bring my dog, and the outfitter I went with said, you do not want to bring your dog here.
No, it's not a dog hunt.
Yeah, and I'm like, man, like the whole time, I'm like, I'm pretty sure I could bring my dog. And I got there, I'm like, oh, man, I'm so happy I didn't bring my dog. He would just follow one of them right off the cliff.
Beat up
or
dead.
Yeah, right off the cliff.
Yeah.
And how you hunt them, there's a famous line of me saying you hunt them like a mountain goat.
Right.
And that's exactly what you do. You're sitting down and you're glassing, you hear a sound, and all of a sudden you're really picking a bird up that's 2 pounds, 2.5 pounds as it's hopping on rocks.
Right.
Because it's a glider.
Yeah.
And most of the time you hear the sound, it's because they're going to glide away. So now you need it to glide to another spot that you can actually make a move on.
Oh, it sounds painful.
So I did this, and as we planned this whole thing out, I had the whole season, right? As I built it in, I built backups all along the way. The snowcock's the only one. It's in a small area, Ruby Mountains of Nevada, and I'm like, if I don't get it here, I've got one more window, and it's going to be nasty weather in Nevada.
Yeah, that's another thing.
So it's 50-50 and I can get back. Luckily, day 2 in Nevada, I got that one, and that was just like get the hardest one out of the way first, and it worked. And then I went right to there. I met Dad in Salt Lake.
So we should say your dad joined you on basically the whole slam except for that.
Except for that. And Dad, the key part was Dad joined me in Salt Lake with the dogs. He joined me with 3 of our dogs, yes. So then we went from there up to Anchorage, and we went out and got all the ptarmigan in a 3-day trip. But when you hunt Alaska, so you've got to use a bush plane to go out.
Right.
And now all of a sudden, it's a bush plane. Is the weather good enough to fly out every day?
Right.
We got lucky that the first 2 days the weather was good. We went out. We got into willows. Pretty aggressive the first day. I want to say the limit at that time was 10. I think we each got 10 willows, and it was just one of those. It was so different from anything I'd ever done. It was so fun. You're hunting these side hills, and you'll get into ptarmigan, and they'll fly out 5 or 6 at a time, and they're turning white to brown. So you're like, oh, I know where you're at. Now we're just going to hunt them, and I just got enough. So now all of a sudden it's, okay, we got to go get the other 2 now. So the next day we went slightly different area, and the outfitter, he's just a pilot, so he's a transporter. He'll drop you off, and he goes, I've only had a handful of people do this. It's like the rocks are generally in the middle, and if you go way up top, see where the sheep are? And I'm like, yeah, go way up past that. The whitetail are up there. And you're like, okay. So we got a willow as I was walking up. We weren't trying for him. I told Dad we're going right to where the rocks are.
I think I watched that episode.
We're going right to where the rocks are. And we stumbled on, and I had my dogs with me, and they pointed, shot a willow on the way up. Perfect. Got to where the rock is, shot a rock ptarmigan right off the bat. The one I saw.
That was it.
The one. Now, I didn't spend any time to look for it because I shot that one, and now I'm going right up for the whitetail.
Right.
And I told Dad, I said, let me go up. I don't want, because it's an old hike, and Dad was in his early 70s at that time. So I'm like, let me go up, make sure they're there.
Right.
And I was in good enough shape to say, okay, if they're there, I'll probably shoot one. Then I'm going to come down, and I'm going to hike back up with you.
Yeah.
Now I'd be like, well, I'm going to signal for you to come up. I'm going to wait here. But back then, I actually walked all the way down, grabbed them, and walked all the way back up. But I got up there, and they're like the first bowl, just sitting there, and it was the time I was hunting with binos, because you do so much with binos trying to locate them. And I sat there, and my camera guy and I were grabbing a drink, and I just look, and I'm like, wait a second. Literally a group of 12 of them just moving all over. So I'm like, we just V-lined right to it. I shot my whitetail, and all of a sudden I've got 3. I hiked down with Dad. I pinpointed where that group flew off to. I grabbed Dad. We walk up. He gets his whitetail. We walk back down, and then we get into more willows. And it was like one of the best days in the field I've ever had.
You had good weather.
Good weather.
Everything.
It was so sunny. And it was just one of those things. So packing binos. I've got a handgun because we're in bear country.
Yeah.
I've got a shotgun. My dogs did awesome in the rocks. Now, the only thing is because you're leaving the willows and walking all the way up, I didn't have booties on my dog's shooter. And he cut his pad.
Oh, yeah.
On a rock up there. And it's one of those things, like we were leaving Alaska going right to Wyoming. So it was one of those things and we had somebody drive our truck out to meet us in Wyoming. So we flew into Wyoming. Our truck was waiting there. And then we unloaded all the dog kennels, got in there. Now we're in a truck for 3 weeks. This is us. And now I've got one of our 3 dogs down. We have a 4th dog that joined us, but she was a young 2-year-old pup and didn't have a lot of training behind, but she was there.
And the dog that got hurt, was he?
Shooter. He was my.
Was he on the A team or?
He was an A team.
Yeah.
And it's funny. you hunted so much with all my dogs, like we get to a situation and the outfitter would be like, hey, this is what it's like. And I'm like, oh, we're going to grab this dog.
Right.
Because it's the perfect one. So Shooter was my wide-ranging, wouldn't bump a bird.
Right.
Did really bad up close, so energy that he needed to get out. And when you're in Wyoming covering wide swaths looking for chucker or sage grouse,
go for it.
Go for it. You go 70 yards to the right, then you go 70 yards to the left, and I know you're not going to bump a bird.
Right.
And he's just covering ground. But if you get him in a tight area in pine trees or something like that, looking for,
So he wouldn't be your grouse or
he's not a
woodcock
grouse dog. So I've got Arrow. Then that's this mix in between of high energy, but he calms down and is that perfect medium range dog. And my dad's dog Tiny is the perfect woodcock. Hunts close,
Right.
Like just like when you got on blue grouse, she was perfect
Oh,
for
I
it.
would
Hunt
see
him in
that.
pines, and she wouldn't leave within 18 feet of you. Just and all of a sudden just locked in, but like perfect. So now you've got these dogs for all these situations. But we get there and he's got this cut. So now all of a sudden, you know how it is. You're trying every kind of ointment that there is. You're trying the glue.
Still
you're trying
a cut pad.
and you're like, I'll just give him a day off. He'll be fine.
Sure, that'll heal.
Yeah, that'll be fine.
I think I got some 24-hour gel in the truck.
Yeah, he'll be fine. He's fine with it. But he just and it did heal up fairly quick. Within, I think, 10 days, he was back. And it was just one of those limited. But you know how dogs get. He just wants to go out.
They don't care.
He would see his other kennel buddies go out, and he's like, why am I not going out?
Yeah.
The only other major incident I had with my dogs, we were in Kansas prairie chicken hunting, and I lied to you, South Dakota prairie chicken hunting, and my dog Arrow caught a fence.
Ooh, yeah.
And I didn't realize it for like an hour. And we were
right
done
on a brisket?
No, right down by the groin.
Oh, really?
So we got done hunting, and he was just covered in burrs. So we went back to the lodge, and Dad would go, and how we would normally do it is I would go and take care of the dogs outside. Dad would get all their food ready on the inside bowls. He would hop in the shower, get ready. Mm-hmm. And I told him I'm going to go bring him. We saw this little lake. I'm going to go drive our truck over, and I'm going to let the dogs out, let them go into the lake, get a drink, rinse off, and I'm going to pull all these burrs out of them once they get wet.
Yeah.
And I'm pulling these burrs off with my hand, and I think I see one underneath his groin, and I grab it, and it's fat. And I'm like, oh, no. Ooh. So I flip him over, and I'm like, oh, my goodness.
So
he's
just skin flap
he's just
with
got
fat on it.
he's just got this 14-inch gash
Ooh.
there. And luckily, the outfitter's like, oh, we get this all the time. Of course, the nearest vet's 3 hours away. You're like, he's like, I can staple it up. I'm like, okay. So he stapled it up and called my vet here and made sure we got the right medicine for him. So and we're in the road.
Yeah.
We're on week 2. We still got 10 more days left. We got to end this thing over in California before we drive all the way back. So he was with us in the road, and the whole time he's sitting there stapled up and healing, and all he wanted to do was get out. He didn't understand why he wasn't getting to go have all the fun like his brother and sister.
What did I do wrong?
Yeah. But, yeah.
So no snake bites.
No snake bites along the way, and that was what we were worried about the most of anything.
That would worry me.
Yep.
You know, I passed on – I was in North Dakota for about 2 weeks this year, but I was supposed to go hunt with a lady in Wyoming, and she said, you know, there's a lot of snakes this year. I mean, whatever it was, and the temperatures was warm enough for snakes, and I kind of went like, you know what, I got –
there's no
a lot
reason.
of birds here in North Dakota.
Yeah.
And I backed – and I'm not, like, afraid of snakes because around here we're not afraid of snakes. If you're afraid of snakes in Michigan, you have a phobia.
Yep.
It's not because we got dangerous, poisonous snakes everywhere. And but when it comes to, like, thinking of dealing with that with my dog and everything, I was just like, I could pass.
Well, so I'm trying to think. We didn't see a snake the whole time. And we hunted Wyoming, we hunted California, we did Oregon to where there are snakes, we hunted Arizona for quail, and then we went down to Sonora to do the elegant quail where Justin came along with us. And we didn't see snakes anywhere. And that was so I'd asked
and
Justin.
You hit a lot of climates there.
Oh, a lot of climbing, a lot of rocks.
Heat, cold, but a lot of heat.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah, it's just and just got lucky, and that was the one thing I'm like, we had looked into how do you train dogs for snakes and do all this stuff, and Justin's finally like, you can't, just got to go.
Right.
So we just went.
It doesn't happen that often, but
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. And my dogs right now, like if they see a blue eraser here in Michigan, they don't care at all. Like their senses don't pick it up as something I got to turn around.
Right.
And it was Justin said sometimes you can get more issues if you bring them to a snake trainer.
Right.
And now all of a sudden, something they didn't even care about, now they've got an interest in why can't I do this? So they just go. And
yeah, I guess if I lived in Arizona or
I definitely,
I would do it. But I think the two people I know that it had happened, it was nothing about a dog getting nosy on a snake. He just happens to be
stepped in the wrong spot.
in the wrong spot at the wrong time. So you can't avoid and strain that.
Nope.
So I guess it's just like driving down the road. We know a lot of people die every day, but we just drive down the road.
Exactly. Yep.
Well, that's not bad for 4 months total. One big laceration and one cut pad.
Yep. Now, we had a lot of sore pads. A lot of sore pads. So those 3 weeks that we hit the road in the truck, and it really
you could have used more dogs, couldn't you? It's just
so Justin, he told us because he knew what I was trying to do, and I think he thought I was crazy the whole time.
Probably.
And his thing is, he goes, I don't think it's going to be possible with the dogs you have.
Yeah.
And I kind of took that as a little bit of a challenge, but what he meant was you need more dogs because their pads are going to get sore. You can't hunt a dog 7 days a week.
Right.
You're going to get bad weather. You're going to get all this stuff, and to only go out there with three. We had three main dogs and a fourth that we would hunt occasionally.
Right.
It just wasn't ready for prime time, and we skimmed by with three.
Right.
Skimmed by. Now, by the time we were done, I would have put those three dogs up against any other dog in the world in a real life hunting situation of I need to go and hit this bird and find it. Mm-hmm. They were just dialed. It would take them a little bit, and they were just because they literally had, arrow, shooter, both those dogs had 26 different species of birds shot over top of them.
Jeez. Did your dad and you both get to wing shoot it, or could your dad keep up with you on every hunt?
We were both hunting, but the goal was to get me. So you know how it is bird hunting, though. He's walking on the left, I'm walking on the right. Yeah. Something takes off over here, it goes over there. It just happened. I think out of the 27 that we considered, Dad got 22 of them along the way. Yeah. So, I mean, he got a heck of a lot.
He got a good share.
Yeah, but it was like down in Arizona, a scaled quail. We only shot one.
Right.
And it was just out of, I still go back, Dad's dog Tiny was sitting there, and I was walking to Dad, and it was just one of those gun on the shoulder. We were just sitting there watering dogs, and Dad's dog Tiny takes off from him and just walks over to me, and she just locks up right in between us. Yeah. And it was just one of those situations. You're like, what's going on? Gun down, and it was the one scaled quail. Yeah. That it was in a situation like that. Dad just gives me it doesn't matter what it is, you're shooting.
Yeah.
And we didn't get a rock term again. Now, if we could have went back up, but Dad was to the point of you got the three.
The goal was accomplished. It just didn't double up on people.
Yep, we just didn't double up. Yep, we got what you needed. Now let's move on to the next one.
Yeah.
Yep. And there were days that he didn't hunt all day, right? You're in your.
Oh yeah.
He's in his early 70s. I hope I can be half of what he does in his early 70s.
Yeah, I'm 65, and I'm half a day, 3/4 of a day is plenty for me.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. I could do better if I had a better knee, but that's another story.
Yep.
Out of all the places you hit to get, what was it, 27 species, took how many states to do it in? Because I know a lot of states you can get 2 and 3.
Yep. So I did Michigan. I'll have to list them out because I don't remember the exact. So Michigan, and we did Saskatchewan. So the international ones were Sonora. We did some of the doves in Sonora, and we did the elegant quail. So I consider doves in there as well.
Yeah.
If or not, I didn't want anybody to come back and say, well, you should have done doves.
You didn't shoot doves.
They didn't shoot doves. Well, so I shot the doves. Yeah. Did the doves in Sonora and the elegant quail. In Saskatchewan, we got that's actually where I got the rough grouse because there's so many of them up there.
Oh, you got your roughie there?
Rough grouse. I got the snipe up there. You got the spruce grouse up there. And then everything else was in the States. So we did Michigan, Kansas, South Dakota, Oregon twice, California, Arizona. Where am I missing? I'm missing one.
Montana?
No, we didn't do Montana. It's 6. I'm missing one state.
And most of that was, other than the flight to the Ruby Mountains and the flight to Alaska.
That's all drive.
Just driving.
Yep. Because it was easier.
You and your dad must get along good.
Well, you get Dad and a camera guy or 2. Who, if you could, Adam, if you get one of those guys to drive at all, you were doing pretty good. So those guys slept for I don't know how many hours in the back of the truck. But we, like the whole travel part, and it really wasn't that bad until you finished in California and went, well, now it's a 3-day drive home.
Now it's straight. That's 3 days. Yeah, that's 3 days not screwing around.
Hunting from the east to west isn't bad because you're like, okay, we're going to drive 4 hours. We're going to hunt something else.
Right.
Hunt a couple of days. We're going to drive 6 hours. You're going to hunt something else. And you just kind of keep bouncing and working your way over there. And then all of a sudden the drive back is the brutal one.
It's so like, why did I do this?
Yeah. And we did that twice. So we went out to Oregon because we did not get a chucker in Wyoming. And that was one where we had to go back up. So we went to Hell's Canyon in Oregon and did chucker hunting and then came back.
Wow. Because I've heard there's chucker in Wyoming, and a guy told me, he said, I got a spot you could find them.
Supposedly they're chuckers in Wyoming.
But you didn't.
I didn't see one in a solid 6 days of hunting. But there's supposedly chuckers there.
I was in Lander, Wyoming, and I went to a guy who does raptor rescue. Like golden eagles, bald eagles, and all this. And we were walking behind his property. He says, I could take you right up on that ridge up there above that creek. And he says, we could find chuckers. I'm like, I don't have to go all the way to Nevada. I don't have to go to Utah.
Yeah.
And I haven't taken him up on it. But if I ever get a chucker, it's going to be in Wyoming.
No, we covered some ground. I mean, we were hunting kind of north central. Yeah. And then after we, like the sage grouse was the big one. We caught the opener. And we just did that one day. Dad and I both got our 2 sage grouse and we're done. And then that's where I got my hun and then the blue grouse and stuff like that. But when we covered some ground from where our camp was, we'd drive 3 hours south. We'd drive 2 hours east.
Right.
They tried everything to get us on chuckers. It was just a super dry year. Vegetation wasn't good. And you'd hit these, and I had never wild chucker hunted before this, but you'd hit these canyons and gullies and steep ones, and you're like, man, everything I've seen, there should be a chucker here.
Right.
And you'd walk it for 4 hours just dripping sweat, and you're like, no chucker in there. And then all of a sudden, we go back out to Oregon, and you're like, this in my head, you've already got the chuckers beating me, right?
Right.
First afternoon, just right there, just how it should be. And then all of a sudden, you're shooting 4 chuckers every time you go out. And it's just great.
Yeah. I mean, did it feel almost too much like work, or was there some favorites?
I wish I could go back and do it again.
Really? Would you do it in that? Would you make it such a boom, 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 boom?
The reason I did it that way is just because of seasons, right?
Well,
you had to do it that way, and I left in there places in case I wasn't successful to go back and do it again. Luckily, the chucker was the only one we had to go back and do that on. But my schedule, my wife, I don't know if she'd ever let me do it again.
Right.
There were
that's a chunk of time.
Yeah, because it was literally almost 4 full weeks that I was gone. The first goal
part of it. Wow.
And I've said this before. I loved it because one, I was with my dad. I was with my dogs. Right.
Yeah.
You know how it is. There's nothing like watching your dog be successful.
Yeah. And people wait all year to do it for a week.
Yep.
And you're going to get to do it for months.
I can't complain about that. Was I tired? Yeah. Was I happy to come home after that? Yeah.
Sure.
But now enough time's gone. I would love to do it. I still love hunting with it. And what it did, though, it was so different, and it's upland hunting. And it got more it brought notoriety to upland hunting and species that hardly ever get seen. I want to say I'm probably one of the only ones that's ever aired on linear TV an elegant quail getting shot.
Right.
Just never done, right? Because nobody's flying there to hunt an elegant quail. And so that brought notoriety, and it really jumped my brand of saying, okay, he's not international. So that led to doing the North America Waterfall Slam, and then the South America Waterfall Slam. And what I really fell in love with it is,
you should have been a baseball player.
Yeah, exactly.
You love grand slams.
But what I really fell in love with it is okay, it's filming, but I was so sports oriented growing up, right? Like a lot of kids are. it's a different competitiveness because it wasn't just going to film an elk hunt for a week to where if I was unsuccessful, okay, I'm unsuccessful.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate enough to be able to got another trip in the fall planned a couple weeks later because I got to do a show. But like this was so competitive that if I didn't get one, it was all planning. It was all strategy. Like you get this, you go to the list, you check it off, you plan the next one and go like that. And I just fell in love with that whole planning part of it forward. Like North America Waterfall Slam, and that was during COVID, so Canada was out.
Oh,
and
yeah.
If I could have went to Saskatchewan, I could have got probably 14 or 15 species in Saskatchewan in a solid 10 days and just started off, but I wasn't able to do that. So it's a lot of planning that goes in.
I've never had the bucket list of birds, but I have the bucket list of places.
And that's one of the great things is you get to see a whole bunch of
Like if there was only one game, like let's just say sharptails were the only bird in the United States, I would be as excited every time if I went to a new place.
Yep.
That's the part that when I look at your book and I'm like, I want to go there. It's like I don't want to go there to shoot the elegant quail. I just want to go there and with my dog. Like
people and the places.
That's the part of me and I've said that for years. People, how many times you've heard somebody say like, "Oh, I wouldn't hunt if it wasn't for my dog." I wouldn't hunt if it wasn't for people and places. I mean, dogs are the big bonus and everybody loves them, but I just love going places.
And
like
the people you meet along the way, too.
Yeah.
Like, everybody has their specialty, right? And everything I do is through an outfitter because that's what we do at WTA, and I own a handful of outfitters now. So, like, that's what I do to promote.
Yeah.
But you meet the guide that's what he does for his whole year is he guides bird hunters here.
Right.
And how he hunts is slightly different than how this guy hunts. And
Right.
you just take all that knowledge and you bring it back here, and you get a little bit smarter along the way.
Yeah.
But you can sit there and talk about that guy because he's a hunter.
Right.
But he's in Oregon. He's different. So he's got different things.
Yeah,
that
the conversations never stop.
No, it's just, and you're always like, he's asking questions, you're asking questions, he's learning, you're learning along the way, and you always have these shared values, right?
Yeah.
Like you're basically the same people, of the same values.
I mean, we've mentioned the name Justin several times, so I want to, I would say my listeners, except maybe brand new ones, Justin McGrail is a dog trainer here from West Michigan. You and your dad have known him for several years, right?
Man, it's been almost 30.
Oh, that long?
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was like 15 years or something.
One of those setters that I told you about was trained when he was at a different spot.
Oh, my God, at Pine Hill
And he must have been, I don't know.
Oh, he was probably 18 years old.
Yeah. Still the same personality, but like it was
still a dog trainer.
The short hair that I mentioned when I had in high school, that was from Justin.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Yeah, so when you hear the name Justin throughout this, you and your dad have had your dogs trained by him, and not all the time. You do some training on your own.
So I think I told you earlier, so I had this when I was graduated college in my mid-20s, and I'd grown up with bird dogs.
Oh, yeah, you said you wanted to be a dog trainer.
I wanted to be a dog trainer.
Well, your dad's eyes would have rolled
I
then.
got the logo. I got everything done.
Oh, really?
And I got started into it, and I got a couple of dogs and realized two things. I don't have the patience for it, and I didn't have the time to be a dog trainer. So instantly, that was right off. Like, it was a great idea, and then went to execute and couldn't do it, right? Just that's why Justin's here.
That's why guys like Justin are out there.
Yep.
If you live, well, I mean, we kind of live in bird country, but it's not crazy bird country. I got a friend that lives in North Dakota. His dogs literally, they don't even have to, they just need to know their name and when dinner is.
Yep, exactly.
Right? But to take your dogs on the road, you gotta, there's some training just to hotels, not barking, feeding them on a schedule, traveling with them.
Yep.
And then if you were a trainer and somebody'd say, well, I want to do this with my dog, you're like, no, I'm just going to show it some birds. Isn't that what I'm going to do? I can't imagine out of everything else you've done that you had that cockamamie of an idea.
Listen, it was.
And you had a logo made up.
It was a bad idea. I still got some shirts that I use for my gun cleaning rigs now. Yeah, it was a bad logo. Bad logo
idea.
and a bad idea. Yeah.
What was the name of it?
North Wing Kennels.
North Wing Kennels.
Yep.
It just like that. You could just remember the whole process.
Oh, yeah. And I was going to do it, got into it, and then all of a sudden you get the dogs, and I'm training, and I'm like, hey, this isn't as easy as anybody said it was going to be. This is getting off work, going out there for a couple hours, and I was like, and for me, I was like, okay, step, jump to the end. Nope, he's not at the end. He's not ready.
Yeah. So going back to Justin, he guided for many years in Montana and I think another decade in Arizona and Montana. And when you said talking with those guides, I know he's told me that his clientele that he used to guide in Montana, a couple of them were getting into your dad's age, and like they're never not going to come because they just want to talk to Justin because he sees so many different dogs and his own dogs and sees so many people. I don't know if the big game world is like that because I've shot a total of 2 bear, 2 deer, and 2 caribou. That's not a lot in 40 years. No one's going to call me a big game hunter. Do you feel it's that way in the big game world?
I do. There are lots of people. Some of the outfits that I own, they're repeat guys that go back every year. Like our deer hunting in Saskatchewan, they go back, because it's a great deer hunt, but they get to see Lance and Emily and Henry and all the guides up there that they just love to be part of.
It's as much social.
Exactly. Okay. Everybody's staying up late, and it's just like a family coming home type of thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I've been to a few deer camps. Of course, it's just alcohol induced. So, I'm like, well, those deer camps are fun. But because the bird world to me is just like, it's the smallest. It's the smallest world out there.
Yep.
Of all, there's way more duck hunters, way more deer hunters, way more. I mean, it's probably more. Well, maybe not more bear hunters, but bear hunters are also usually deer hunters and elk hunters and everything else. And you run into people, mention a few names, and all of a sudden, you either know somebody who knows them, or there's just a couple more degrees of separation.
You're a couple degrees that
Did
know
you
somebody.
Bump into anything
oh,
on
absolutely.
the road?
All along the way, you could do that. You had talking to the guides of, this bird hunter. Well, they've at some point in time they hunted with them. And you're like, well, that, and then how it is, start talking dogs, and he was hunting under over the same dog that you hunted over, and you're like, wait a second, like we did all this, and you're 4 states away, and
that traveling would be, like I said, I wouldn't care if it was the same bird in 29 states or 26 states, but traveling it, I think that would be my goal. I think I'll go after just pheasants, the most aggravating bird in the world.
The rudders.
I'm assuming you went to South Dakota for your pheasant.
Nebraska. That's the other state I didn't mention because we hunted right outside our office.
Really?
Yep. In Sydney, we hunted right outside Sydney for pheasants.
Do you previously have a lot of pheasant experience with your dogs?
In North Dakota, I did. So my Brittany's that we had never hunted a pheasant before.
Okay.
So I guess something I should have mentioned, the only birds that our dogs had shot over them were wild birds, were grouse and woodcock here in Michigan before we left. Now, Justin had shot chuckers over them.
Just for training.
Right. But the only wild birds they'd ever hunted were grouse and woodcock.
So these dogs saw all these places for the first time, too. Did you see any adjustment problems with it, or like you said, you had the kind of the right dog when you needed it?
You could tell they were constantly learning, and about partway through that 4-week first ordeal, it clicked for all of them.
Yeah.
Hey, this is what we're doing.
You got better work, better bird finding.
But really, can you imagine how your dogs, if literally for 4 weeks straight, you woke up in the morning, you fed them, hopped in the trailer, bird hunted for 8 to 10 hours a day, came back, fed them. They slept. That was their routine for 4 weeks. That they were all they were doing was going out and hunting.
They just developed that skill set.
Right in and locked in.
It's almost like they know there's, like you could take a first trip from some guys in Michigan. Not only do you not know where the birds is, your dogs don't either.
Exactly.
Yet.
Yep.
They can get lucky, but that much experience on the ground, the dogs, if they could talk English, would come out of the box going, "Let's go get them."
Yeah.
Like they know.
Yep.
Like the first day, they didn't know you were taking them for a walk or a bird hunt.
Yep. And that's truly how it was. Of course, the first spot we brought them was to Alaska. They had to ride in a bush plane out of a kennel. Like we've got these pictures of the dogs just thrown in the back of the bush plane,
shaking
just
like they're
shaking, and my dog Arrow's all over. He's standing on the life vests in the back, just drooling all over the pilot's window. And I'm just like, oh my gosh! How do you train to be in a bush plane? You can't. Like this is just where we're at. This is how we got here.
Oh my God!
But
that I could imagine. There's some dogs that would fold up, on that. I've seen. I had to fly across to Beaver Island one time. My dog was he was so mellow, he just looked out the window, and the other two in the back were shaking like they were under indictment.
I have to admit, the other state, I don't know how I forgot this. We hunted Hawaii.
So we flew. What's in Hawaii?
So we did blue pheasant, Franklin's.
Oh, okay. Franklin's African, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But they've got, so Hawaii's got, we shot quail and regular pheasants there, Urkel, like all those birds there. So we hunted the Big Island and we hunted Molokai while we were there. Pain in the butt to get a dog there. You got to go through all the process with your vet here to send the paperwork there. You got to arrange for a vet to meet you on landing. Just
really?
So much of a pain. Hunting's so awesome, though. So awesome.
Well, I mean, what would you compare it to? Or is there anything to compare it to?
North Dakota on the best day.
Really?
Just because the bird variety on the Big Island. And then when we hunted Molokai, so you're hunting these kind of red dirt hills, and you're overlooking the ocean, and you're hunting Franklin's, and you'll come to where these big bushes are, and your dog will lock up on one side.
Like plum thicket type size?
Yep.
Okay.
And your dog locks up, and you kind of work down at the bottom. The camera guy stays back, and you get these pictures to where your dog's locked up, and he's pushing the birds down to you, and you're shooting these going away shots going down.
Wow.
And as you're finishing, and the ocean's at the end of your barrel.
Wow.
And then you go down there and you grab that bird, and it's just one of those things of walking there, and I can't believe I'm here doing this.
Is that you're that close to the ocean, so your altitude's not
not crazy.
Too crazy high.
No.
Did you have any problem with the dogs and some of the mountainous stuff, altitude-wise?
No, they just adapted. But we were thinking, because it was one of those things, because we had to take, there's these little puddle jumpers in Hawaii that you take for like $75. You can hop in. And I remember I had to buy a seat for each one of my dogs. So they were, and then I'm like, well, wait a second, because we're taking all the seats in the plane, and they're like, yeah, you know what, you're going to have to charter your own to go there. And I'm like, how much is it? And they're like, $75 per seat. And I'm like, oh. I'm taking the whole plane because our dogs are going to be all over the place in this thing. You don't even know what's coming your way.
Otherwise, you're going to have seatbelts on the damn things.
Yeah.
So they all recovered. Everybody healed up, and you wrapped that up. That was 20?
19. Well, it was, we wrapped it up in February of 19. So it was 18 fall wrapped up in 19.
Gotcha.
Because then the next year I instantly went into planning, and that was going to be the North America Waterfall Slam, and of course that little COVID thing happened. So I kicked it around in 20 if we were going to do it, because Canada wasn't open, and I finally I'd set so much of my schedule aside to do it. I'm like, well, we're going to go for it and give it a whirl.
Yeah. The waterfowl stuff, I'm a guy who I waterfowl like I deer hunt and like I fish. Somebody invites me, I go.
Yep.
You won't find any decoys in my kennel. You won't find a boat in my garage. Same thing. I got like one big game rifle, and but I absolutely love duck hunting. I mean, because it's another one when nothing's going on, you don't have to be quiet.
No, you can sit there and talk.
Sit there and make. We were on the Mississippi River this year duck hunting. My neighbor wanted to go, and I went with him for a couple days, and they're making breakfast in the boat.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's great.
Other than that morning thing.
Very early.
Yeah.
That's the beauty about the upland hunting is you're like, we don't get out there crazy early.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, South Dakota was the best thing ever the first time I went there. I'm like, you mean I could have a hangover and still hunt the next day?
Yep.
It'd feel perfectly good by 10 o'clock in the morning?
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, I've used, this isn't a pitch, but I always get, like I said, I like to travel for bird hunting. And I think once I did a guide in Canada, once I did a guide for snow goose on the Eastern Shore, once I did a guide in New Brunswick for grouse, and I did a waterfowl guide in Kansas. The guide in the Eastern Shore, am I supposed to show up knowing I'm going to put out 500 decoys? Because I didn't know that was. Is that okay?
So were you were doing the conservation snow goose hunt then?
No, it was January.
Okay, but
So-
you were specifically going after snow geese.
Yeah, that's what we called the guy up, and we had a nice place for us to stay.
Yeah.
And I remember he had this big cleaning station along his driveway, and I'm like, how come there ain't a lot of feathers? Seems like there'd be a lot of feathers. And we got out there. Of course, we saw gazillions of them.
Yeah.
But he only had X amount of property, and they weren't coming. But he had us out there trying to go into the frozen
yeah.
ground with all these. Is that normal?
So some people do it that way. Some people go out and set it up early and bring their clients out.
That's what the guy in Kansas did.
Yep.
We felt like we were like, he had a pit blind in one place. He had layout blinds in the other. They just met us at a gas station, got us out there, told us where to park. It
all depends on what the outfitter is and obviously price point and how much ground they've got and all that kind of stuff.
So like I'm batting 50-50, you know.
Well,
how do you vent? Do you have to go meet all these guys, or
we vetted all the outfitters we book for?
Do you?
We book for about 500.
Oh, really?
Yep. So we've got a wide swath of people that we book for.
So if I said, I don't want to be the grounds crew, I just want to go hunting in Kansas. I want to go waterfowl hunting in Kansas. I want to get some what did I shoot? Speckle bellies.
Yep.
That's what I shot there.
Yep.
You'd find a place that says, okay, they'll pick you up at the gas station, set you.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't need my coffee brought to me.
So how we break it down is, and I'll use duck hunt for example, right?
Yeah.
So somebody will call the office, and we've got 14 consultants. Everybody really has a specialty in there that they deal with. Like we've got Tim Harold who deals with Africa. Matt Gindorf's kind of the waterfall guys. There's so much, but you'd probably get Matt, and Matt would break it down of how many guys are in your group.
Right.
What's the ideal experience that you're looking for in your head? Tell me what would be ideal for you.
Like I would say, this Matt, I would say, I want to be comfortable at night and be able to smoke cigars.
Yep.
At least outside.
Yeah, comfortable at night, want to smoke cigars. He would ask your experience because that basically means what kind of caller you need to be with.
Yep.
How we generally do it is we'll give you 3 options, right? These are the 3 options, a couple different price points, but you'll know the information behind all of them.
Yeah.
And this is the lodge. These are the guides. When you go out snow goose hunting, they're going to have 7,000 decoys out. They're going to put them out. They're going to go out about 1:30 in the morning.
Those guys don't sleep.
One of them are going to come back and get you, and they'll get you out there.
Right.
Like, this is the setup here, or you're going to hunt with this guy. It's not land that they own. It's lease ground. You're going to hunt with about 700, and you're going to hunt with some socks, but he's going to have you help put out, or it's a hotel-based
But you'll know all that.
You'll know all that, right?
Yeah.
And it's basically just narrowing down to what your ideal experience is, and then we try to
get it close.
Basically get as close as we possibly can.
Yeah.
And the beauty is, so like if how can you book with an outfitter if you're looking to book with an outfitter? One, you can use somebody like us that has a network of people that we deal with.
Right.
Or you can look on social media, or you can go to a show and book it. If you're looking on social media, you're going to a show, you're going to talk to a guy.
Right.
That guy's selling you what he has.
That's how I got one of my down ones in New Brunswick. I was at a show.
He's hearing you talk, and he's adjusting his speech for what you want to hear because he knows you're only going to go one time, and as soon as I got your money,
it
is what it is.
Yeah.
So the beauty of booking with WTA, all the outfitters we work with numerous times, right? So a lot of people will go into a camp, say you're going elk hunting, there are 4 hunters in camp. A lot of the times, all 4 hunters, even though you don't know each other, have all booked through WTA to go there. So if something goes wrong on that trip and you call us afterwards and like that outfitter's going to make it right because we handle such a big book of their business. And how an outfitter looks at it is there's no up cost for using us. How an outfitter looks at it is I've got marketing costs that I'm either going to put in my website, social media, doing the show circuit. So if we do the show circuit, I'm going to be gone for 5 weeks. I've got hotels, I've got booth costs, or you're just going to rely on us to do it.
Right.
We really like the no drama outfitters, the ones that have shown over the years that they're successful, and then all of a sudden when a client's looking like, we've used this outfitter for 12 years.
Yeah.
Here's their success the last couple, and you can tell which outfitters are honest, and all of a sudden we're taking what they're telling us is coming for this season or what's going on at that moment, and we can really adjust and make that client experience great.
Yeah. I had, like I said, I've got so many, with the podcast now, I've almost got I got too many invites like everybody gets. But I still get that little bit of wanderlust, and I got to dig up and see. Now, I've got a few connections in the UK. I want to get out there for the glorious 12th. I don't know what year it's going to be. I don't want to do a peg shoot. I want to get out there and rough hunt. And a friend of mine did it, and that's like, I gotta go to northern UK or Scotland or wherever. Have you done anything out overseas?
I haven't. So as part of this,
you want to go do a TV show with me?
I'll get there. As part of this slam thing. So this year in 23, I'm going to New Zealand. Take off Adam's going with me.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, Adam's
Yeah.
going with me. We take
Yeah.
off April 30th. And we'll be gone until May 12th. But we're going over there, and it's going to be the waterfall and upland slam. So there's 12 species in New Zealand. We're going to go and get them all.
Oh, I assumed you were going for tar and
No,
everything
we're doing
else.
it's all part of the waterfall or upland slam thing. So
See,
23
I'm
is
looking at
New
this
Zealand.
room, Mark, and it looks like you like to shoot rifle bullets, but I think you like to shoot shotguns more.
I shoot a lot of everything. So I'm off in 2 days to Ethiopia and then bounce and go to New Zealand to do the bird hunting and so anyway, as I start to plan these, one of them is I'm going to do the European upland slam.
Wow.
And it's going to be the Caperkill and all
the different
the stuff over there. So that's on the list to do. I coach girls basketball here in Shelby. My daughter's in middle school, so I coach the middle school team, and then I coach at the high school too.
Yeah.
So the last 2 years, I've coached from mid-August to mid-October for middle school. I get 2.5 weeks off, and then I coach in high school from the first week is conditioning of November up until basically the first week of March.
Wow.
So I haven't had those times to go and film. Now, this year our conference changed, so middle school season is going to overlap with high school season, so it'll just be that November to March time period.
So you're making all this work based on the kids' school and coaching?
Yep. So it hasn't allowed me to go to Europe and do that one yet because of when I need to go over there and film, I'm coaching over here. So that's why I did South America.
Yeah.
Because it's a different time. That's why I'm going to New Zealand to do it. So it works perfect because I can air it in the fall because it's bird related and I can air it perfectly, but I can go there and film what works around my schedule.
Yeah. So we got to wait till your kids are all out of high school. I'll just get there. I'll go scope it out
Scout
for
it
you.
out? Yeah.
I'll scout it out for you.
Yeah.
I got enough connections over there. I think I can make it done.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time. We could probably go on forever and tell some dog stories. And now just to be because I always love picking on everybody, and everybody picks on me because they could pick on me and my dogs. Do your Brittany's all retrieve?
No. No, come on. What kind of you don't ask a Brittany guy if their dog retrieves?
Do your Brittany's find shit to roll in more so than the average dog?
I tell you what. Okay, so I've got two. I've got my two main hunting dogs are Shooter and Arrow, and Arrow lost his eyesight from glaucoma.
Yeah.
We just had his last eye surgery. Would have been 4 months ago, but he's basically had very limited eyesight to none the last year.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's going all scent now, so he doesn't roll a whole lot. But he never rolled to begin with. Now, Shooter, on the other hand, he can be on the other side of a woods, and if there's deer crap over on the other side, he sprints 60 yards and is flipped on his back midair, just right into it.
That is one reason I think they're sweet dogs. They're great family dogs. I've never hardly met a Brittany that could pass a mud puddle, let alone I don't know what it is about them, if they know their coats longer, but I mean, setters have that same soft, long coat. They're not all rollers, but Brittany's are the worst.
Yeah. Shooter will find a mud puddle just about anywhere.
I was a little shocked at the retrieving. That's about a 50-50.
So I can't say they're retrievers. Have they retrieved some before that they have?
Yeah.
But if I need to make a bet that I'm going to shoot something and I'm going to get them to retrieve that one, it's going to be a pretty small bet. Yeah. Shooter more so than Arrow.
I'll bet you a beer.
Yep.
How about shooting wise yourself? Obviously, you've been doing it since you were a kid. Mm-hmm. Did you ever do the sporting clays? Did you practice out here where you live?
I didn't.
Or you just everything's on the fly, shooting
on the fly, I'm an instinct shooter.
Yeah.
Yep.
Never really had formal lessons.
Nope. I get lucky a lot, is what I say. But one of the things, you got to shoot a lot to get lucky a lot. So if there's something in the air, you're definitely going to hear me shoot.
You've worn out a few guns, I'm sure.
Yep. Now, there's been some shots in my life that I'll remember as remarkable. That snowcock in the Ruby Mountains, it was about 60 yards going away, downhill, so I had to lead it underneath.
Yeah, that would be
to
tough.
shoot. King Eider in Greenland, 40 yards left to right. And in Greenland, you can only have 2 shells in your gun at a time. So I missed the first one, but I judged how far I was behind and let it
like a race car
and crushed it on the second one.
Yeah.
Some of the quail shots along the slam that I'll remember that just you could tell as soon as you let it go that it was good. But it was one of those things. So even me, after being on the road for 4 weeks, man, I was a pretty good shooter by the time it was over.
Yeah.
And so we ended that slam in Sonora for elegant quail and then the doves, and Justin was with us.
Yeah.
I was feeling pretty good until I was walking in the field next to Justin. Then all of a sudden I started questioning what I was as a man. Because he is a heck of a shot in the field and just does it so casual that, now all of a sudden I'm starting to put pressure on myself. So a quail gets up in front of us. Now I'm starting to be,
Oh, shit.
Bang, I missed. And Justin just crushes it. And you're just like, and he's just, he's got the kind of walk to him like
he's
a
kind
roll.
of got like, I can't describe his walk, but it's kind of like something from a cartoon.
Yeah,
that I can't, you're right. He's that guy that like a flush doesn't fluster him.
He doesn't get phased.
And I've when we filmed the Upland Institute, I don't think I saw him miss a training bird. Now, obviously, they're not the most difficult. But, I mean, I've missed plenty of training birds.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's holding the gun up. He's stomping the ground, looking at the dog. And it's almost like his afterthought is to turn and shoot the bird.
And it drops where it should. He's looking at the dog.
Yeah.
There's many times where he's taken and do the walk after the train. You're picking your dog up, and he's going through. And I always told him, like, he's never missed. Not one time has he missed.
I know.
But, no, it was the same in the field hunting. We hunted gambles, and then we did elegant quail down there, and it was the same thing.
So when you did the dove down there, was it like one of the days where you're shooting 1,000 ammo, or were you just getting some of the dove species?
So in Sonora, I did it a little different. Like, literally the first day I got all the dove species I needed out of the way. So then we went dove hunting, and you go dove hunting in the afternoon. It's basically the last hour and a half. Right. It's not like Argentina to where
so it's not the constant.
No, it's you don't have many times. Argentina, you have somebody loading your gun for you and handing it for you. I've done that one. In Sonora, it's you load your own gun, and it's shoot, load, shoot. It's a cat. You're not going to go more than a
right. You might miss a few because you weren't loaded, but
yep. But again, it's like, what's the matter what's the difference if I shoot 100 today or if I shoot 120?
Right.
There's no difference. Just take it, and it is what it is, right?
I've always wanted to do it just for the swinging a shotgun.
You get pretty
because when they're just coming after a while, it could be boring. But the shots.
So it's
like the bird could be boring, but the shot's not boring.
So that's where you get to the point of, okay, I'm not going to shoot the ones straight over my head.
Right, they're just.
I struggle with left to right or right to left, whatever it is. Now all of a sudden, those are the ones these birds are just going, and now all of a sudden I'm just trying to focus on these ones to get your follow through. Or you're just going to sit there and be like, I'm going to hit the next 3 birds that come here, no matter where they're at. I'm going to hit it. And you're doof, then you're doof, and then you're doof.
Yeah, you really get dialed in.
You get into little. It's just like I say, it's like shooting a basketball on a court. Sometimes you get in the zone, and sometimes you'll rally off 10 or 12 in a row. And
I wouldn't know what that feels like.
You're like, ooh.
They didn't pick me for any sports teams in Chicago. Anyway, Mark, thanks for having me come out here.
No, thanks for coming.
Thanks for the books, and take care of my son-in-law in New Zealand.
I'll try to keep him out of trouble.
Yeah, try to, because he can get in trouble.
He's a pretty good one to travel with, though.
He is. Him and I went to Alaska last year.
Yeah.
And he got his bear, and he was. Did he get all flustered when he's like packing up for trips? Because
one thing with Adam, you can get him flustered pretty quick.
Yeah, he got pretty flustered. He thought he left his license, and we're already off the float plane, but back in Ketchikan, we're back in Ketchikan, and I sent him in the liquor store because we ran out of beer, which is a sin with me. And he walks out of the liquor store, and he goes, I'm like, what? I roll the window down. We're in a little rental car. He says, I can't find my license. I said, well, it's got to be in your pocket. He goes, no, I looked. For 2 hours. He's like, it's on the bed in the cabin on Prince of Wales Island. It
was in his pocket, wasn't it?
In a pocket as he was repacking his bag up in Prince of Wales. For some reason, he put it in another pocket of his backpack. It goes in your wallet. Yeah. So don't let him.
No, he is one that he'll get into his bag and he'll start shuffling around and he'll look for something and it's right in front of him. He'll just keep shuffling and he's like,
Right. So keep an eye on my son-in-law because
we'll take care of him.
I enjoy his company out there, and I appreciate you taking care of telling us a few stories, and I guess I come over here and hear what the Upland Slam's like in New Zealand.
Yep.
I mean, that sounds. Yep. And then when you ever get to, if I haven't been to the UK to help you.
Yep.
Then let me know when you're going.
We'll do for sure.
It might be 70. How old are your kids now? You got another?
So my youngest is 13. She's a 7th grader. So she's got 5 years left.
70. Well, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Sounds good, Mark.
Yep.
Bye.